Hey, I'm back to go through Letterboxd's top 250. I picked a really shitty time to do this. Really shitty. If you've been paying attention to what's going on, Letterboxd has totally. They have a new rating system now. So there is once again a new number one, and a lot of titles have just completely fallen off the list. The Spider-Man movie, which caused all this shit show, is now at number eight. So it fell, but like not really that much. I actually read a really quick article about what exactly they did. It's an article, like a statement that they put out. So it used to just be a very simple, like the average score, you know, very easy, not too complicated. I don't think a lot of people can argue with that. Hold on. It's simple. Not too many people can argue with that. Now what they're doing, and the article actually didn't even go to specific details. What they're doing now is, I can't even tell. So that's simple. Can't really argue with that. It's just the average score. And they have a new system now, which they're actually keeping under wraps. They're trying to prevent campaigns. So, like a bunch of different people, I guess, just from. Well, they're doing it by region or something like that. Um, so that's, pretty simple. Can't really argue with that. It's just the average score. But they have a new system now, which they're not really sharing with people. But the article suggests that it has something to do with the regions that reviewers are in. Because one interesting, really big change is that the number three movie on Letterboxd, which was A Dog's Will, that Mexican film, and I talked a little bit about it in the first video. The theory there was that Mexicans really, really loved that movie, but like it didn't really travel outside of Mexico. Most people, I mean, I had never even heard of the movie. I think most people weren't even familiar with that movie, and now it's not even in the top 250. And if you go on that movie's page on Letterboxd, it drops from like 4.6 to 3.9. So now region has a lot to do with it. I've heard a lot of people make the argument is that there should be some kind of like time period before a film is eligible to make the top 250. Obviously, there is a small window. The movie, I think, has to have been officially released for, I think, just a couple of weeks, maybe a week. But the argument is that maybe in order to be considered one of the greatest films of all time, it should be. I mean, I originally suggested like maybe like a year. I saw some people online were saying like 5 years. It might be a little bit too long, but I would prefer that over a week. I think that's a good idea, and it'd be interesting if that came into play. Because then even 5 years, Parasite would not even be eligible, and that has now dropped to number 6. So the new number one is the Kobayashi film Harakiri. And Come and See is now number 2 again. I would prefer Come and See over Harakiri, but I definitely prefer Harakiri over the new Spider-Man. I still haven't seen the new Spider-Man yet. I hear it's great. I'm sure it's good. But yeah, probably shouldn't be number one. Okay, so the list did change a lot. One change I don't like was that Eternity in a Day, which is a personal favorite of mine, was at 64, which I think is a very respectable place to be, dropped down to 114. I'm glad it didn't drop off the list. But it dropped down to 114. Which is, I mean, still, I guess, respectable, but not as good as 64. But it makes sense because I think very few people have seen that movie. I mean, it has enough votes to be eligible to be in the top 250. You need, I think, 5,000 votes. And it's 33, I just checked. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense that, and again, we don't know the specifics of this new system, but it has something to do with region. The article mentioned like region. I don't think they know our ages, so I don't think age factors in. I don't even think my Letterboxd knows where I live. I guess it does. I didn't even think about that. Did I give them my address when I signed up? I can't remember. But yeah, the article mentioned regions, and now the list is just all kind of... I mean, there aren't too many drastic changes. It just kind of got like... Everything got like jumbled up, I feel like. And so I'm supposed to do today 151 to 200, which I'm still going to do, but I'm looking through these, and I've definitely have done some of these already, and I can't remember which ones I did and which ones I didn't do, but, okay, well, screw it, we'll just have to jump right into it. If I think I already talked about one, I'm gonna skip it because I mentioned it in a previous video, but, we're gonna start with 151. And 151 is To Be or Not to Be by Ernest Lubitsch. I don't think I talked about this one already, I may have, but, this is a movie that I actually have seen. This is my first Ernest Lubitsch film, and I got to Lubitsch kind of late. If you're into screenwriting, you know Lubitsch because you've probably heard of the Lubitsch Touch, and he definitely has one. He is an excellent screenwriter. I'm actually becoming quite a big fan of his. Not the biggest fan of like classic Hollywood, but Lubitsch was quite something else. He captured all of the charm that I think made that era of filmmaking so good, probably better than any other filmmaker. And I think it's that charm that makes his film so enduring. So while a lot of classic Hollywood films I think are poorly dated, not his movies. 152 is Le Dolce Vita, which is Federico Fellini. Again, I can't remember. Did I talk about this one already? I know it's been a while. And I'll just talk about it again. Yeah, I think Federico Fellini's best film. Also maybe Marcello Mastroianni's best film, or his best performance at least. Really great film. It's long, earns its running time. I think it's the type of film that like you can appreciate it when you're young, but I think the older you get and a little bit more of life experience you have, I think that certainly enriches this film. Again, I'm sorry, I can't remember if I talked about this one already. I feel like I did. But 153 I haven't talked about. That's Akira, which is kind of the groundbreaking anime film from 1988. I like this movie a lot. I wouldn't say I love the film. I don't consider it to be the classic a lot of people do. But definitely it's a historically important film, too. I think it kind of it made the world kind of recognize how important and how serious anime could be. Anyway, I think it came over to America and was a big hit in the States as well. I think my big problem with this movie is I thought the ending dragged on for way too long. But everything leading up to like maybe the last 20 minutes is like really fantastic. Yeah, it's really great animation. 154 is a film I haven't seen. It's John Huston's The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. I've been meaning to check out this movie, but I haven't seen it yet. Okay, and 155 is Z. Z is a really excellent film. This is like the kind of political, social thriller, not social thriller, but like a political thriller at its peak. The director, Costa, this was kind of his niche. This was like his genre. He's kind of like the king of the political thrillers. And he's made a couple of other really captivating movies. What I've seen, Z is his best. This is a really phenomenal film. It's been a while since I've seen it though, and I don't totally remember the plot, but I know it does involve someone being assassinated with a hammer, which is pretty cool. 156 is Double Indemnity by Billy Wilder. Again, I think this is a really good example of a classic Hollywood film that has aged very well. It's still really pretty nail-biting and suspenseful. This was Billy Wilder's, I think, first really big breakthrough. This is the movie that put him on the spot. And again, I feel like have I talked about this one already? Crap. This is hard. But if I haven't, there we go. That's Double Indemnity. 157 is a movie I haven't seen. I want to. This is kind of the official War and Peace film adaptation. This movie is actually Russian. It is 422 minutes long. So that's a lot. I think that comes up to about 6 hours, maybe longer. And there have been a couple of War and Peace adaptations, but this is 7 hours. This is supposed to be like the one. I'm not familiar with War and Peace. I'm not familiar with Toy Story. But this is supposed to be, well, it's considered obviously one of the greatest novels of all time. But yeah, I haven't seen the movie. It's supposed to be really phenomenal. And actually, you can watch the 7-hour version, but they also broke it up into like 4 separate movies. So if I do ever get around to watching this War and Peace, I will probably take it one movie at a time. I don't know if I'm ever going to sit down and watch 7 hours. Maybe I will. I'm actually surprised that for this list they count the 7-hour version. I always thought how they officially released these films was into those 4 separate films, but yeah, it says here they got the 7-hour version. Okay, 158 is a movie that I really like. Again, I don't consider it to be like a great film. I actually think I don't want to say it's deeply flawed, but I think it has I have a few too many issues with it to consider it to be like a great film. But that's Michael Mann's Heat. I actually revisited this film recently because the first time I saw it, I was pretty young. Didn't care for it that much, but then everyone goes on and on about how great this movie is, so I decided to give it another go. I think how I feel about this movie is, so the movie tries to be about these, so you've got different sides of the line. You've got like the criminals, and then you've got the police investigators trying to catch them. So you've got Robert De Niro, who's this crime boss, and then you have the Al Pacino character, who's the detective trying to catch him. And so what it does, it tries to show their life on the streets, the criminals and the cops trying to pursue them, and then it also shows, like, their domestic lives. So it shows them, like, at home, with their lovers, with their wives, and I think those scenes are really boring and kind of dull. There's this whole subplot where Al Pacino has a stepdaughter who's played by Natalie Portman, and the stepdaughter has some kind of, like, mental health issues. At one point she tries to kill herself, and it's, like, a whole thing, and I think it's, like, it comes up out of nowhere, and it's kind of pointless. But the film is very well made. I like Michael Mann as a director, although I'm not too familiar with his work, but Heat's a good movie. Might be his best film. 159 is Good Will Hunting, which is a film I love, but I know for a fact I talked about this in the last video, so you can watch that if you want to hear my thoughts on that. But yeah, so this dropped quite a bit, I think. Yeah. 160 is The Shining, which again I think I already talked about, but I do again love this movie. I might consider this to be the great horror film ever made. And of course it's Stanley Kubrick, who can kind of do no wrong. But yeah, I think I talked about this movie already. But if I actually, I think a nice companion piece for this film is they made a documentary called, I should know this, I think it's called Room 233. But it's just kind of like a compilation of all of these different conspiracy theories about The Shining and the hidden messages, and a lot of the theories are pretty crackpot, but I thought that movie's I think they're all fascinating. It's a good time. 161 is Network by Sidney Lumet. I think I talked about this one already because everything got jumbled up, but I'll talk about it again. Really great film. Sidney Lumet was just killing it in the 70s, and the screenplay by Patty Chayefsky is also really fantastic. Yeah, great acting all around. William Holden, who was a really, I think, underappreciated actor, is great in this. So, Network. That's a good one. Okay, 162 is another 2023 release, and I actually haven't seen this movie yet. It's kind of going around in theaters. I want to check it out soon because it's supposed to be phenomenal. So, 162 is Past Lives, which is a new. It's a Korean film, but actually the director is the director is Canadian. The director was, yep. So 162 is Past Lives. There's been this really interesting trend recently where, I mean, obviously in the past 10 years now, or past 15 years now, some really great movies have been coming out of South Korea. But what's also interesting is now we're getting a lot of really fantastic films that are set in South Korea, but they're not necessarily written or directed by Koreans. So last year, one of my favorite films of last year was this really excellent film called So number 162 is Past Lives, which I have not seen yet. It's making its way around theaters now. I've been meaning to check it out, but I've actually been away the past 2 weeks, so I haven't had a chance to check out Past Lives, but that is currently 162. 163 is Metropolis, which is such a phenomenal movie. I understand why a lot of people don't like